Duo, the writers and producers behind God's Not Dead and many more, Carrie Solomon and Chuck Gonzelman.
Wow. I wish my wife was here. Things would change. We want to say thank you for having us, and to Tom and Diana and all of you who are so nice and gracious. And I think it's very important that what you're doing here and what Tom is doing here and what Diana and the rest of you are doing, whether it be your first time or your 100th time, it doesn't matter. Catholics as a whole have got to gather up. We've got to get serious, and I don't feel like that's the case for most Catholics. I don't know if anyone else here feels that way. But Catholics at work, what Tom is doing, I met Tom through a series of events, and he's been incredibly inspirational and inspiring for us. And he basically has networked us and helped us move forward the task that's been appointed to us. But I have possibly bad news for you, but I consider it good. This is not only our task. This is many of your tasks. You don't realize it yet. Many of you believe maybe that you're a little older now and that you can just sit off and go into the pasture and spend the last 15 or 20 years of your life happy. But that's not the case. Moses was called when he was 80. 80. Now, and he spent 40 years in that time. And up until that time, he did very little. He was a shepherd. The first part of his life we all know. The second part we know very little of. Many of us are called later in life. I'm 57 years old and I was called. We were called 8 years ago. I'll tell you a little bit about us. Chuck will tell you a little bit about us. We came into the business 25 years ago. And it was because of the Lord. We were successful in another business. We figured, let's go out. Didn't like that business. We were empty about it. It was fairly brutal.
And we were full of constructive naivete to think we could go do this.
Yeah, and we said, well, we've conquered this. Why don't we go conquer Hollywood? That should be easy. It'll be fun. and that's not the case. Hollywood is an evil place. We're going to tell you what happens in Hollywood for real. What you're going to find out is the real deal, not what they want you to know. Unfortunately, there are people in this country that wish to destroy this country. And their intention is to use the media to do that. And they're doing it very successfully, in our opinion. We have to fight back. It's time for Catholics, Christians, and good people even good people that have no faith, to fight back, to push back. This is our country. This is our life. These are our children we're talking about. I have an 11-year-old boy, and I live in dread every day when I wake up what he's going to have to face. Chokes me up. I never thought that I would see any of what's going on happen in my lifetime. Didn't we all want for our children a better world? That was the whole point, right? Thank you. But that's not happening. How do you like America right now? How do you feel about that? The American dream? I don't see it anymore. The greatness of what was once America, I'm sad to say, I don't think America is great anymore. It scares me. How could this have happened? Out of nowhere, and with the speed and rapidity, the rapid movement that it happened, where we see half the nation literally blinded as if to follow a Messiah who is not a Messiah at all. I don't understand. But the Lord calls us to have faith. He calls us to believe. He calls us to walk, and that He will provide, and He's done that. For 25 years, myself and Chuck, we toiled in this business, and it is a dirty, dirty business. We did everything. We worked with Bruce Willis, Stallone, all the big stars, Stanley. He does all the Marvel comics, the Hulk, Spider-Man, and all that stuff. We worked with all these people, did TV, did the movies, and we hated it. Hated it because it's godless. Because we'd go into an office, and on the pillar, they would have a bumper sticker that says, "Keep your rosaries out of my ovaries." Now, like Chuck used to say, what's that?
In what other business would that be considered acceptable business etiquette, acceptable business behavior? None. None in America anyway, but in Hollywood, that's the norm. That's the way things are done. That's the prevailing mindset. And part of the misconception that Americans tend to have is they tend to believe that in Hollywood, their God is money, and that's not true. That money is the demigod. Political correctness is the God. And so the same way that if we were to ask you, people out here in the audience, well, if you could make some money by funding a movie that violated every principle you had, that would tear down God, tear down traditional marriage, tear down family life, would you do it? And you'd probably say, no, of course not. Well, why do we expect people in Hollywood then to go do that? Because they have beliefs that they hold very close. They just tend to run very counter to the beliefs that you hold close.
Hollywood is no longer making movies. They're a political propaganda machine. The days of the Waltons and Gilligan's Island and Hogan's Heroes are gone. You do not have family movies anymore. There is no family gathering around the TV. We look at It's a Wonderful Life and wish that it was the way it was in those times. When I was growing up, I was in front of the TV with my sister, my mom, and my dad. Today, you have 5 TVs in the house, and there's one person in front of each TV. And one of the reasons these kids can go and watch something they're not supposed to is because daddy's watching Spike TV, mommy's watching HGTV, they're in the bedroom doing whatever they're doing, and let's face it, I can't let my 11-year-old turn the channel. This is horrible. It goes against common sense and reason. Why would you indoctrinate kids to have sex? Why would you indoctrinate kids to steal and to murder? There are 19 serial killer shows on TV. 19. Glorifying. And the hero of the show is the serial killer. How does that happen? It happens because we've lost our way. And we've allowed people who do not believe what we believe to try and change the way we live. Hollywood is a communist organization that packages socialism as a belief that they want everybody to have. They hate. 25 years now. I'm talking from experience here, and we are successful. And we'll get to that in a second. They hate God on a level that you cannot comprehend. They would kill every single person that believed in the faith if they could. But they found an easier and better way to do it. They have lost their way. They've lost their mind. And the irony of ironies is that Hollywood was a Jewish town. And 100 years ago, there was a great book written about 20 years ago called An Empire of Their Own. How the Jews invented Hollywood. And listen to this for a second. This is powerful. You have to understand what we've dedicated our lives to do. What the Lord has called us, and maybe some of you, to do. The Jews 100 years ago were persecuted at the turn of the century, 1900s. So they fled from Eastern Europe, from persecution. And they found America, and it was good. And they found Hollywood, and it was good. It was a place where they could live and kind of just hide. But then they went into business, and they were industrious because they have the blessing of the Lord. It did not diminish. And so everything they put their hand to prospered. And they found this thing where people would put a nickel to go see a movie. And it was good. It was really good for them. They made a lot of money. But they realized that persecution could still fall upon them. So what they said is, we've noticed that these people, these Americans, they don't have an identity. They don't know who they are. We know we're Jewish. If you know anything about Jewish people, they have an identity, or at least they had an identity. And what happened was, they looked at America and they said, we can craft these people so that we will not be persecuted. And what they did is they gave us the American dream through the movies. What they said is the white hat is the good guy, the black hat is the bad guy. Honor and nobility is good. You don't go and kill people. And they did this for self-interest, yes. But at the same time, it was good interest. And they didn't mind Jesus for one reason, because they knew Jesus was good. They didn't believe in Jesus, but they said, he's good. What he's saying is good. Love your enemy. Well, if you love your enemy, you're not going to kill me, right? Love everyone. Forgive. All these traits. And they said, so Jesus is good. It's okay that we give this nation this. We don't need to believe this, but we can survive here. And America grabbed onto that. And when we went into World War II, if you look at World War II, we had those values. We had those morals. But time passes, and the children of these men had children. And they had children. And the grandchildren of those men never took public transportation. Never had to worry about getting into school or working a day in their lives. They have the silver spoon in their mouth. And so the problem is they have no idea of reality. And so they get hit with guilt because they want to try and save the world so they can justify their perverse hobbies and everything else. Oh no, we've got to do this and we've got to do that. And liberalism grips them. And so now what do? They do exactly what their grandfathers did. Their grandfathers gave us our identity as America, and all was good. But now they said, we can do that too. We're going to give you a new identity. And they figured out, sadly, that the movies and TV are the way to do it. And in 1950 it started. And in the 60s the Hays Code disappeared. And then all of a sudden, slowly but surely, they indoctrinated the country. And slowly but surely you started to see things on TV that you'd never seen before. But we would watch TV. Why? Well, we like those characters, or we like this, or we like that, and I want to be entertained. I've just come home from a hard day's work. And slowly but surely they fed us the poison that has led us to where we are today. Do you understand the evil that we're talking about? People look at Adolf Hitler and say, oh, he was a bad man. He was probably an antichrist. He killed tens of millions of people, 6 million Jews. Stalin was worse. Most people don't even know. Stalin killed 50 million. Mao Zedong killed probably nearly almost 100 million people. And we've had these dictators and these antichrist type men. But I will tell you there's a new antichrist coming. And you're going to say, okay, now he's getting carried away. He's going to tell us who the antichrist is. You're right. This antichrist is different. It's more evil than Hitler, Stalin, and Mao Zedong put together. And you're going to say, well, who could this be? This antichrist is so evil, in my belief, when Hitler killed the Jews, or killed people, or 6 million, or all those hundreds of millions of people that died, God would have mercy on a person who was brought to a concentration camp and executed. And that person, even though they had to suffer that terrible fate, even though they had to suffer through that fate, I believe that when they came before the Lord, the God of mercy, the God of divine mercy says, you're home. You had to endure this. You did it. You're home. But this new evil, the way it puts people into the concentration camps, is even worse for one reason. When these people die, they're not going to go to heaven. This new antichrist is the media. And you're going to say, I don't understand. Its tendrils are everywhere. When the media gets into a person and says to him, your sexual desires are okay. You can have an adulterous affair. It's not a problem. As a matter of fact, look, on TV, we glorify it.